Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Monday. Thanks for joining me. Today is going to be, let me think, what's the word? Awesome. It's going to be awesome. I'm so glad you joined me. We're moving well into Christmas season. Christmas is now just 21 days away. I hope you love our Christmas decorations. Were they up last week? I can't remember, but they're up now. Merry Christmas to you and everyone in your family. I got a special gift on the first day of Christmas. We'll call this the first day of Christmas. Now we got 21 days of Christmas left. Today's show is going to be tremendous, tremendously tremendous, as Deion Sanders would say. We're not starting with a daily dose of Deion. We're starting with Steve Kim, the Korean Cosell, and my fire starter about Florida State. But on the back half of the show, we are going to give you a daily dose of Deion. We have a couple of former Colorado football players who are in town and will join me here live in studio to talk about their experience. You won't be hearing it from me. You'll be hearing it from guys that actually played at the University of Colorado and were briefly coached by Deion Sanders. You'll hear it straight from them about what that experience was like. That'll be the second half. We're going to start by talking about Florida State and about the NFL weekend with the Korean Cosell. Before I do anything, I need you all to do something. That 5-star rating on Apple, you got to pound it. They're trying to prevent those from happening. You guys need to pound that 5-star rating. It's important. If you're watching over YouTube, you see that subscribe button. Look, just open your eyes, look down a little bit. That subscribe button, I need you to tap that subscribe button. I need you to make sure, even if you've already thought you subscribed, if you need to resubscribe, get the notifications, leave a comment, tell us what you think about today's show. And then what I really, really, really need you to do is support the great sponsors that make all of this possible, like our great friends at Bank on Yourself. Are you being lied to? Wall Street tells you to put your money in an IRA or 401k. They say that risking your life savings in the Wall Street casino is a secure investment for the future. Yet studies show the average American who follows that advice will outlive their savings by 10 years. Bank on Yourself is a better way to grow and protect your hard-earned money. This retirement plan alternative has never had a losing year in over 160 years. That's older than my grandmama, who's passed. Mama, love you. Miss you. With Bank on Yourself, your plan doesn't go backwards when the markets tumble. Your principal and growth are locked in. You get access to your money for any purpose with no questions asked and without government penalties or restrictions on how much income you can take or when you can take it. Try doing that with a 401k or an IRA. You can't do it. This is the strategy famous businesses like Mickey D's, McDonald's have used. And almost anyone can do it. Your money is guaranteed to grow by a larger dollar amount every single year in both good times and bad. Do you want guaranteed, predictable annual growth, control of your money, and tax-free retirement income? Then go to bankonyourself.com/fearless, and we'll send you a free report with the proven retirement plan alternative that banks and Wall Street are desperately hoping you never hear about. Just go to bankonyourself.com/fearless for your free report. Bankonyourself.com/fearless. Support our sponsors. Bank on Yourself speaks for itself. Bank on Yourself. All right, let's get to my fire starter on this Florida State debacle, or lack of a debacle. Anyway, major college football, it never needed a postseason playoff. The game was perfectly fine when the opinions of sports writers and coaches determined a mythical national champion. No one was harmed when sports fans argued throughout the offseason about which team really deserved to be ranked number one. The players on teams that finished second or third didn't suffer post-traumatic stress disorder. College football used to be unique. Every game used to matter. The final score of every game used to matter. Even if powerhouse Nebraska scheduled a mid-major, the margin of victory contributed to the perception of the Cornhuskers. I say all this because I'm not going to shed any tears for Florida State. The Seminoles finished their season 13-0, winners of the ACC, but were left out of the 4-team playoff because, in the opinion of the selection committee, one-loss Texas and one-loss Alabama are better than Florida State. Here we go again with these pesky opinions. They still matter in major college football. The playoffs were supposed to eliminate opinions and allow everything to be determined on the field. As long as there is a selection committee, opinions are going to matter in college athletics. You can't escape opinions unless you further dilute what had been sports' greatest regular season by expanding the playoffs to 24 teams or more. It's time to admit that the people who have been trying to improve college football have actually ruined it. The pursuit of more financial riches has professionalized college football and increased the corruption in the sport. Florida State fans, they believe the selection committee invited Texas and Alabama to the playoffs because ESPN and ABC have exclusive broadcast rights to SEC football beginning in 2024, which will include Texas, hence overriding the network's ACC affiliation. College football was never pure, but it was different. Many of its young players felt a genuine connection to the schools that overlooked their high school transcripts and SAT scores and invited them on campus to learn, socialize, and play a game. That's not true anymore. Athletes now feel entitled. Why shouldn't they? Corporate media programmed to believe only two things really matter: money and competing for a national title. In the pursuit of money, the college season has been expanded. Conferences have been blown up and made irrelevant, and the only bowl games that matter are directly tied to the playoffs. Happiness is based on expectations. 25 years ago, Florida State's players would be thrilled with an ACC championship and a bowl matchup against Georgia. The new system has made them victims. A great crime has been committed against Florida State. Everybody is a victim these days. Ohio State just finished its season 11-1. The school's starting quarterback, Kyle McCord, announced yesterday he's hitting the transfer portal. College athletics are now no different from the NBA or NFL. The players are mercenaries. That's not said to demonize the players. It's said to demonize the school presidents, administrators, coaches, and members of the media who failed to protect what was special about college athletics while attempting to generate more revenue. Bad leadership produces entitled young people and corrupt systems. Not one thing about college football has improved in the last 40 years. There were far superior ways to compensate college athletes than name, image, and likeness. NIL and the transfer portal were initiated as reactions to the NCAA's lack of vision and mainstream media's lack of sophisticated ideas and analysis. This is a group failure. It's not going to be fixed when the playoffs are expanded to 12 teams. There will be a whiny Florida State every year. The 13th place team got robbed. College football is just another reality television show. Reality TV is scripted. Alabama and Texas are bigger stars than Florida State. The networks don't care about competition. They care about ratings. That's all they care about. That's why the network spent all season trying to convince viewers that Deion Sanders was the second coming of Bear Bryant. What's funny is, if Deion coached Florida State, the Seminoles would have qualified for the playoffs with a 12-1 record. Think about that. I just snuck Deion in, and Ticket TV and all the Deion groupies are now whining because I gave you a little Deion early. Anyway, in a second here, the Korean Cosell is going to join us. We'll debate whether Florida State got screwed or not. I don't think they did. I don't care if they did. They got the best TV show they could put together. Alabama, Michigan, Washington, and Texas. It's a good TV show. If Florida State wants to add Deion to their cast, they'd be a better TV show than maybe they'd probably be the number 1 seed. Anyway, we'll get to Steve Kim. We'll let him debate it. Then we'll discuss some of this NFL stuff as well. Before we get to Steve Kim, guys, I get to talk about one of my favorite sponsors, Preborn. You guys know what our vision is here at Fearless. We believe life begins at conception. Not only do we believe it, we know it. No organization supports that belief better than Preborn. Preborn provides expectant mothers an ultrasound. They introduce that expectant mother, to the baby's heartbeat, an image of the baby. Once that happens, she is more than twice as likely to choose life. And that's when Preborn steps up, steps in, and provides her the support she needs to get through pregnancy and through that baby's first 2 years of life outside the womb. That's where our money goes, guys. And that's why we support Preborn. Because we know our money does good, it creates miracles, it changes lives, it changes the culture. We must continue to support Preborn. Whether it's $28, whether it's $280, whether it's $2.80, whatever it is, it goes to a great cause. You guys have met Dan Steiner. He's been on the show twice. I've met him several times. We know that our money doesn't go pay for a bunch of executives so they can go on vacations or have a summer home. It supports expectant mothers. 2 ways to give: pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby. Or give the way that I prefer to give, preborn.com/fearless. That's preborn.com/fearless. It's the Christmas season. What better gift can you give the world and yourself and Preborn than a gift to Preborn? Let's do it. All right, you can email me and us at fearlessblazeshow@gmail.com. Korean co-sell Steve Kim next.
It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
Jason Whitlock, previously on Fearless.
The black man and the black woman are at odds with each other. There's a fight, and there's a disconnect from the natural order, a rejection of male leadership. And so when I started the show talking about the race war, it's just a beard for the gender war. That's what this entire thing is about. This is a battle of the sexes. This is about the patriarchy versus the matriarchy.
모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 Reason that I'm back is to feed you raps I see that you are 배불러 So fly
All right, welcome back. Time for some Korean co-sell. Steve Kim. Steve, you're the college football junkie of this show. I'm sure you probably disagree with me and you think the playoffs are the greatest thing that ever happened to college football. And you can't wait till it's 82 teams in the college football playoff. Nothing was wrong with college football. In trying to make it perfect, they've ruined it. And we don't need a playoff. And so I don't feel sorry for Florida State. Your thoughts?
Boy, I'm going to get a little political here. It's going to upset people, which I thoroughly enjoy. This is what happens again when you just employ liberal policies to anything. The players deserve to get paid. They should transfer anywhere. Well, now you got anarchy. Right? As for the playoff, I can admit when I'm wrong. It happens about every quarter century. Be careful what you wish for. It kind of reminds me in boxing all these years. For years, I wanted open scorecards. Like, why in the middle of a fight do we not know the judges' scorecards? Until one day, Jason, I saw a fight with open scorecards featuring one of my favorite little boxers of all time, Mark Too Sharp Johnson. And after 8 rounds, he was winning by such a margin that the rest of the fight, he ran around the ring. And I said, okay, no more open scorecards. Just get better judges. So in that one, I'm with you. So, look, as I look at the college football landscape, the news today, we literally have starting quarterbacks, and you mentioned this in your column, Kyle McCord, look, I told people he's probably the most average Ohio State quarterback in over a decade, right? But if he just hits 2 or 3 plays that he left on the table, well, he's the starting quarterback for a playoff team. But instead, now he's in the transfer portal, and I'm thinking, this is insane. And I'm looking at a lot of these quarterbacks that are hitting the portal, and I'm thinking to myself, you're better off staying where you are. And there's a lot of good players that were developed and flourished at mid-major programs that are now departing. And I'm thinking this, even as a follower of a program that swallows up a lot of the transfer portal kids from quote unquote lesser programs like Miami, I don't find it fun anymore. You don't get to grow and see these kids develop over 4 or 5 years. A kid becomes a role player and he graduates and you're like, you know what? You were a good player. Congratulations. Now there's almost no attachment. Now, is it as bad as college basketball with the one and done? No, it isn't. But college football used to be about community, team, family, building, development. Now it's just a group of mercenaries. That's what it is.
Steve, one of the greatest things to happen in my life was the first 2 years of my career at Ball State went horrendously. It couldn't have gone any worse. I wanted to quit.
Yes.
And if the transfer portal had been around, I would have hit the transfer portal or I would have quit. But luckily, my parents were like, hey, good luck, buddy. You quit. That's football scholarship. You're on your own. You're a grown man. Don't you bring your butt home here. My mom lived in Kansas City at the time. My dad lived in Indianapolis. And they were like, don't bring that garbage here if you're quitting on a scholarship. And so I had to stick it out. And the next 3 years were amazing. 2 years on the football field and then a year focusing on my career in journalism were amazing. Best friends in life. I grew up, part of the reason why I am the way I am today, and I'm again, it was a process of me getting right in the right mental state. But thank God that my coaches stuck to their guns and were hard on me, and all the mistreatment that I felt like I was dealing with, thank God they did it. And I look at this Kyle McCord and I know that, you know, social media is probably tearing him up and he just wants to get away from Ohio State fans that are mad and blaming him for them not being in the playoffs and all that other stuff. But what happened to just gutting it out? And we've just lost that. And I just think we've done these kids a disservice. And the media is just foolish and inept and talked us into a level of chaos. And they've just, college football is just not the same. And I know I'm an old man yelling, get off my lawn, but I don't watch near as much Ball State football as I used to because I sit there, not as much as I used to, because I just know, like, hey, whoever the best kids are on this team, they're getting out of here. We had a running back, Carson Steele, who played well at UCLA this year. We have 2 tight ends that are pro players. They were sophomores this year. They both just hit the portal. They're out of there. And so what's good in discovering the diamond in the rough? We had a great quarterback in 2006, 7, and 8, I believe. 2006, 7, and 8, Nate Davis. He would have been out of there after his freshman year. Instead, he stayed at Ball State. We had this incredible 12-0 regular season, national ranking, one of the greatest seasons in the history of Ball State athletics. It'll never happen again because you can't keep any of your players. Ben Roethlisberger would have been out of Miami of Ohio as soon as he would have shown a whiff of NFL talent. And he led a nationally ranked Miami of Ohio team to beat, I think, Big Ten teams on the road. They've just ruined it, man.
Wait a minute. So Jason Whitlock does not religiously watch Ball State football. I want to tell you something. When we spent the weekend, college football Saturday a couple of years ago, fans, this is how much of a Ball State guy Jason Whitlock is for all those people that want to doubt it. We're at a sports bar. I think it's called the Doghouse. I mean, it was great. All these screens, all these big games going on. We're enjoying ourselves. And Jason brings upon his tablet, and I go, "What are you doing?" "I'm going to watch the Ball State game." He was looking for it on ESPN. That's the type of alumni you are. And that is sad, man. In the immortal words of Boney T from Boomerang, this is worse than when the Fat Boys broke up. I mean, but you bring up you bring up a great point here, is that now schools like Ball State, they are the Montreal Expos during the last 7-8 years of their existence. They're a farm system for other major league clubs. So in other words, you better enjoy that 1994 club, because as soon as they went on strike, number one, you lost your franchise. But number two, every one of those future Hall of Famers and perennial All-Stars, they're going to be dispersed around the league to bigger market teams. And Jason, real quickly, your column got me thinking about all the chaos and all the discussion that surrounded the playoff. Now, again, I'm not totally against it. I actually think they just need to go to 8 teams, not 12. That, to me, is a fair compromise, because you get all the major. I know, I see your look on your face. I'm working within the system we're dealt with, but it reminded me of 1998. Oh, what a great time that was. But anyway, so I remember a team that you must have covered. Kansas State was number 1 going into the Big 12 title game. Number 2 was UCLA playing Miami. And I was at that game, by the way. Edgerrin James, you're good, you. So anyway, and then Tennessee was playing Mississippi State in the SEC title games. And I remember UCLA's defense could not stop a leaky faucet, much less Edgerrin James. 49-45. What a game. The Bruins out. And then it became Kansas State blew a late 10-point lead against A&M. I still remember Sir Parker, LA guy, scoring a game-winning touchdown, out. And then somehow, some way, we got Tennessee, who held on late with Mississippi State. And then Florida State kind of backdoored their way in. But, Jason, didn't that feel like a playoff Saturday back then? I mean, I thought, and this is where I do agree with you, Jason, I thought the conference title games were really the first leg of an extended playoff that we already had. That's just my opinion.
I was at that game in St. Louis, remembered well, sitting there all day. Bill Snyder's about to get his crowning achievement. He's going to kick, and it gets snatched away from him. And it was brutal, man. It was absolutely brutal, but it was awesome. And it's a memory I'll never forget. And look, I'm Alabama and what they did, I'm sure Alabama fans are pleased. They knocked off Georgia the week before. They used a Hail Mary and pull off a incredible victory late against Auburn that kept them in the hunt. And so there's memories being made at Alabama and all that. But this stuff of the Florida State guys just won their conference. They're going to get to go play Georgia. And if they beat Georgia, they'll have every right to beat their chest and say, you know what? Hey, we're the best team in college football. And they should actually be taking pride in that and be excited. But instead, they're bitter. And some of Florida State's best players may say, you know what, I'm going to sit this out. I'm going to prepare for my NFL career, or I'm going to hit the transfer portal. Steve, let's throw all of my complaints to the side and just answer this question. Did they pick the right 4 teams, in your opinion?
Based on their criteria, yes. And I know people are going to say you're a Miami home and you hate Florida State. All that is true, but I can honestly say it. I think they got the best 4 teams. And I'm watching Football Palooza with Coach Jason Brown. There are other football coaches there. We had all 3 games on, plus the Ryan Garcia fight. But we really were focusing in on the games. It was Michigan-Iowa. It was the Florida State-Louisville game at that point in time. And halfway through the game, all of us kind of agreed, man, this Florida State down to the 3rd quarterback, would they be favored in a neutral setting against Alabama. Now, with that being said, I'm still a believer that the games have to mean something, and winning and losing should matter. Okay, so both things can be true, but with their criteria, and let's talk about this, Jason. ESPN has a large say in funding this playoff, right? Well, who are they in business with? Who's more important to them, the SEC or the ACC? Let's just go there. There is a television component to this, and they are heavily influenced, okay? And here's what I think happened. Shame on Georgia, because Georgia kind of played like, well, even if we lose, we're in. This was the one year that the SEC, they weren't dominant enough to get two teams in the playoffs. In years past, the team that lost or lost late in the year could still get in it. This was not the year. And Georgia, for a greater run as they had, this particular season, they were not as dominant as the previous two. But still, a tip of the cap to Kirby Smart. He did a great job in leading that team as far as he did. I thought Texas had to be in it. Jason, I felt for a while when Texas is healthy with Quinn Ewers at quarterback, I think they're as good as anybody on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and they have explosive skill players, even without Jonathan Brooks, their number one running back, who I think is a key blow. But if you're going to put Alabama in, then the problem is the committee said, okay, we got who's the lesser of two evils here in terms of leaving out? A damaged Florida State team with a crippled offense, or Texas that actually won a conference title, was dominant late, and beat Bama. I think that's the compromise that they chose, for better or worse.
And so, and I know people think I'm just trolling or I'm just, but with this new system, here's what they've put into play, Steve, and I mean this in all seriousness. If Florida State is 13-0 or 12-1 with Deion Sanders as head coach, they're in the playoffs. They're in the playoffs. Steve, I'm not wrong. They're not going to – they would be called the KKK committee if Deion at 12-1 or 13-0 doesn't make the playoffs. And they'd be the number one seed if Deion was the head coach. And that's the kind of stuff that's now been injected into this that, again, it's not good.
By the way, here I thought we weren't going to get our daily dose of Deion, and you just brought out a blindside blitz. Well done. I'm just telling you, that was good. But there is an argument for that. If the guy's literally winning Sportsman of the Year for winning 4 games, is it out of the realm of possibility? Because a lot of this is about television ratings. I mean, say what we want, but the 4 teams that are in it, and you look at the 1-4 and 2-3 matchups, I think they're actually really, really good. I do. And again, Florida State had an unbelievable argument going undefeated in a pretty good ACC. It was not as down as people say, even with Clemson kind of declining. But Jason, going back to the issue of Florida State players, number one, I do wonder if players like Jared Verse and Keon Coleman, who have NFL futures, are going to even think about playing the game. I don't know that. But going back to that 1998 Kansas State team, that was the story of the year. I distinctly remember, and I don't know if it was Michael Bishop, but at the post-game press conference, the Kansas State players were crestfallen. I mean, they were highly emotional. And one of them flat out said, man, we want to play in a national title, not no crummy Alamo Bowl. And you could just see it. And in that game, they played hard. They didn't want to play as much as Purdue. That I remember, that was Joe Tiller's first year, and Drew Brees led this great comeback to beat them. And I got the sense watching that whole game, I said, Purdue seems to want to be here a little bit more than Kansas State. Georgia has a very strong culture. I don't know how many of their guys are going to sit out, but if Carson Beck plays, you're talking about Carson Beck, who had a really good first year. Looks like he has an NFL future compared to Florida State's 13 quarterback and guys who may sit out. That's a very tough matchup for them.
I want just one last point. We don't have to dwell on it. But I just want you to see how things have changed with this playoff deal. Remember, for years, a lot of the bowl games, after you get past the Rose, the Sugar, the highest of the high-end bowls, were all decided on, hey, how many tickets can you sell?
Yeah.
How many tickets can you get your fan base to sell? And now we're going to move into an era where it's can you drive television ratings is going to determine whether or not you get into the playoffs. And that's what I'm saying. Deion would provide a decided advantage for Florida State. And I'm telling you, a 12-1 Florida State team would be in the playoffs right now. And Alabama or Texas would be sitting at home to make room for Deion Sanders and all those TV ratings he would draw. We don't have to dwell on it. Steve, let me take care of a little business. I want to switch up and talk some NFL football with you. But guys, for years, Hollywood has been lacking when it comes to stories of redemption. Movies and TV shows have trended towards the anti-hero, the flawed person who makes no effort to change and just becomes worse and worse as the story goes on. Well, here's some great news. The Blind, the story of the Robertson family, is now available for purchase on Blaze TV. Maybe you've made a mess of your life. Maybe someone you love is in a dark place. Maybe all the above. If you or someone you know feels beyond redemption, you need to watch this movie. You'll see there is always hope, always. The Blind takes you on an incredible journey through the life of Phil Robertson, giving you an intimate look into the man behind the legend and the trials and triumphs and the values that have shaped him through the years. While The Blind wasn't a Blaze Media production, since Phil is such a big part of our Blaze TV family, we wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to stream it here. Because it isn't ours, we can't include it as part of our subscription. But if you'd rather purchase it and stream it here rather than Apple or Amazon, we wanted to make sure the opportunity was there. And now, don't miss this opportunity to own The Blind, a Phil Robertson story on Blaze TV. Buy it today at blazetv.com/theblind for $19.99. That's blazetv.com/theblind. Steve, some interesting action in the NFL yesterday. Chiefs lose on Sunday Night Football to the Green Bay Packers. Cost me money. The Eagles get curb stomped by the San Francisco 49ers. Cost me money. Who has a better chance at making it back to the Super Bowl, the Chiefs or the Eagles?
I get the sense the NFC is tougher than the AFC. It's a rougher road. So just based on that and the fact you still have Mahomes, who, by the way, is having one of his worst statistical runs ever. Okay? We need to get a certain coach out of the Southern California area that you used to hang up on for saying that he was overrated. This is kind of alarming now. This is more than just a trend. The Chiefs' offense is now just a real flashy, methodical unit. They look all good at times. They don't score a lot of points. I was actually stunned that they don't even score more than 22 points a game. But that being said, they play really good defense now. And you still have Mahomes. And I still believe the referees, they're going to find a way to make sure that 15 is in that Super Bowl. Yeah, I said it. So I'll say the Chiefs.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I get your I get your argument, and I would probably go that route as well. I want to say this, though, about Patrick Mahomes, what we're finding out. Talented, Hall of Fame quarterback. Gonna go down in history as one of the top 10 quarterbacks, maybe top 5 of all time. But he does not have Tom Brady's drive. Winning isn't as important to him as it was for Tom Brady. And some of that probably has to do with Mahomes is a first-round pick. The Chiefs went up to go get him, I think in the top 10 of the draft. Tom Brady, chip on his shoulder, 6th-round pick, late draft pick, always had that chip on his shoulder. And so I just think I think the Chiefs and Mahomes are a bit satisfied. You know, Pat Mahomes is in any commercial he wants to be in. He's got 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls. He doesn't have a peer. And keep in mind, like take Brady was always competing with Peyton Manning. Who's Patrick Mahomes competing with? Nobody. And so I think Patrick Mahomes isn't Tom Brady. He's not Tiger Woods. He's not Michael Jordan. He's a super talented guy that just that's when I look at how their offense is backed up and he's having a mediocre season, he's a bit satisfied right now, and his tight end is a bit distracted right now, and he doesn't have Tyreek Hill, and so he's got some excuses, and he's going through the motions.
In all fairness to Mahomes, every year he's been a starter. The very least the Chiefs have gone every year is the AFC Championship game. So the guy gives you a shot. Now, as for Kelsey, the young man's in love. I hope those two make it. Now, here's the problem, though, and you bring about a good point. There is no Tyreek Hill. And as I kind of look at their outside receivers, I don't see a Carlos Carson. I don't see a Stephon Page. I don't see a Bo. They are so average outside. And look, Mahomes, every play, it almost looks like Fran Tarkenton. And this is what Coach JB has talked about, and I'm beginning to really see it, and I think you're beginning to see it. Get the ball off on time. Every play now looks like the end of the Benny Hill show. Remember the Benny Hill show with the music and everyone used to chase everybody? Not every play can look like that. I'm serious. They put the Benny Hill music at the end to a regular game of Mahomes, and it fits perfectly. I don't know how sustainable that is, Jason. I really don't.
On the other side, the reason why I still favor the Chiefs over the Eagles, it's not even about the whole NFC. It's just really about the San Francisco 49ers. When they're healthy, I don't think they can be beat by anybody in the NFL. And certainly not by the Philadelphia Eagles. Those guys just went into Philadelphia and broke out a can and embarrassed these guys. And again, I said Chase Young, Nick Bosa, that combination, and just how hungry that team is. Brock Purdy, and then Christian McCaffrey, and Trent Williams, and Deebo Samuels. They're loaded, and Kyle Shanahan needs a Super Bowl. They're really driven. I don't think the NFC is San Francisco's conference, and so I don't see the Eagles getting past San Francisco at home or on the road. Steve, I want to move on to another topic. Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. Somewhere Skip Bayless is celebrating. Philadelphia looks terrible. Dak Prescott's having the best year of his career right now. But over the next 4 weeks, they play the Eagles, the Bills, the Dolphins, and someone else I'm forgetting. It says Commanders here, but that's not who it is. I don't think that's not the 4-game stretch. It's where? Give me a second here. Let me go to my drafts. Oh, I thought it was the Eagles, Buffalo, at Miami, and then the Lions. Am I correct here, guys? I know it says Commanders or something, but I think it's the Lions. Do you expect Dak Prescott, the final month or in this next month, you think Dak and the Cowboys get exposed?
I'm going to go Asian Michael Irvin here. The boys are going to go 3-1. I don't know which 3. I don't know which one. I don't think they're going to get exposed. I think they're a pretty good football team. Look, with Prescott, remember how Reggie Jackson was known as Mr. October? Prescott is known as Mr. September through December. It's really January. Look, I have never been that down on Dak. Dak is solid to pretty good. I don't know if he's ultra elite, but he gets way too much slander, but he's got to come through in the postseason, as does his head coach. They are tied at the hip when it comes to that. Jason, the last 2 seasons, prior to this one, haven't they won about 24, 25 games? They've racked up regular season victories. That's never been an issue. And if they can play from ahead and teams have to abandon the running game against that front seven, then all of a sudden Micah Parsons becomes the most dominant player on that side of the ball in the league. So that's what
I got him going.
What do you got?
I got him going 2-2. Can we put a bet on this?
Oh God!
I got him going 2-2.
All right, I'll bet you $1. I'll bet you $1 on that. 3-1. Because I'll tell you what, Philadelphia has to come to Dallas, correct? And Jalen Hurts got banged up. I don't like the mojo. I think the momentum right now favors Dallas. Miami, look, Miami is a very fast, fun, flashy team. Dallas should be too physical for them, right? Buffalo is very, very uneven. And right now, who would you rather take, all things being equal, based on their recent play? Dak or Josh Allen? I think you take Dak, especially you, because your team's Stephon Diggs. Yeah, your team's Stephon Diggs, so I know it's Dak. And also, my Detroit Lions, my guy Dan Campbell does not have a secondary. Lem Barney, Ryan McNeil are not walking through. As much as I like Detroit, I'm rooting like heck for them. They just defensively, they need better cover men. They are very vulnerable on the back end. But I
is that you admitting they shouldn't have drafted a running back and should have taken a defensive player? Is that what you're saying?
No, hold on. Based on where they were drafting, Jahmyr Gibbs is a weapon. He gets the ball a lot, and him and Montgomery are dynamic 1-2. Now, when it came to the Jack Campbell pick, the off-the-ball linebacker, that's where you could but no, you leave Jahmyr Gibbs alone. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm not saying he's Billy Sims or Barry Sanders, but he's a playmaking demon. So no, I am not allowing you to second-guess Brad Holmes. He's done a hell of a job there. Brad, you're good. You're good, you. Gosh darn it.
Let's flip back to the AFC for a second. There are 6 teams in the AFC that aren't in first in their division, but they have a 7-5 or a 6-6 record. I think it's the Steelers, Browns, Colts, and Texans are all 7-5, and the Bills and Broncos are 6-6. Let's say, and again, none of those teams are in first place in their division. So 3 of those teams are going to make the playoffs. Name those 3 teams.
I'm going to say the Browns. Flacco can still chuck the football. Sometimes he has no idea where it's going. But you know what? He gives them a little veteran leadership. They can ride off the defense. I'm going to say them. Man, I was going to say the Texans, but then Tank Dell got run over on a running play, and I don't know how that's going to affect C.J. Stroud. Jason, I know you're going to like this. I think the Broncos. And really, it's not because of Russell Wilson solely. By the way, he kind of struggled yesterday. They played good defense.
Kinda. He threw 3 interceptions.
Right. Well, last week you were crowning him as the comeback player of the millennium.
I know.
But they have come such a far way from that 70-point blowout. Sean Payton has that thing going in the right direction. Pittsburgh, again, now you lost your quarterback, and again, it's not exactly Big Ben or Bradshaw, but you're going with Mitch Trubisky. I don't know how long you can go there. It's really a shame because I thought Tank Dell was such a key thing. And the Texans, DeMeco Ryans, he's one of the stories of the year. That team, Jason, when you see them play, they are having fun. They are enthusiastic. They play with an incredible amount of energy. And in C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, who had a big game yesterday, you have 2 cornerstones. They hit home runs on those picks.
So you didn't name a 3rd team.
You know who I kind of like? And they've been in every game, and I think they actually found their quarterback of the future, and that's just a cheap shot at Darnell Smith. I kind of like the Colts. I kind of like
Gardner Minshew?
Yes, Minshew is keeping them in games. Right now, Gardner Minshew does not have the physical athletic upside of AR5. But in terms of delivering the ball consistently on time, he's a pretty serviceable guy, Jason. He's not bad.
Wow. You're leaving the Bills, Steelers, and Texans out. I'm going with the best quarterbacks. So I'm going Josh Allen. I'm going C.J. Stroud. And I'm going Russell Wilson. So I'm going Bills, Broncos, and Texans. I'm going with the quarterbacks. Flacco's too old. The Browns are the best team. I really believe they got the best unit, that defense, and Myles Garrett. But Joe Flacco's too stiff, in my opinion. So anyway, those are my three. Finally, Steve, I want to talk about the MVP race because I want to be leading the discussion.
Here we go.
Trying to talk people out of just handing the MVP award to a quarterback. I think these are the MVP odds according to DraftKings. Brock Purdy is the leader in the clubhouse.
Really?
Jalen Hurts, number 2. Dak Prescott, 3. Tua Tagovailoa, 4. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. How can this be when Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey are doing all that they're doing? Here's my top 5. And I need everybody in the media to pay attention to what's really going on. Christian McCaffrey is about to have a Marshall Faulk type season. He's well on his way. I think he's the first guy that he just called Marshall Faulk, and is it Lenny Moore? Who was the other guy? Did I get that name right? Anyway, only 2 guys ever do that. Christian McCaffrey just joined him. He's my number 1. Tyreek Hill's my number 2. Those are really 1A, 1B. Trent Williams, I got number 3, the offensive tackle for San Francisco. I was watching. Man, he's just destroying people, and they're just running left behind him. Literally, I was watching him this week, and I was like, hey, man, this is like my high school offense. In high school, offensive line coach came up. He drew up a chart of all the plays that they ran behind me and all the plays they ran to the left side of the field opposite me. And I'm talking, it was like 300 running plays behind me and 2 on the other side. That's what's going on with Trent Williams. Dak Prescott, I have at number 4, and I still got my man Jason Kelce in at number 5. That's how I see the MVP race.
Hold on. First of all, Kelce must have had a really bad week. He was literally number 1 just about 5 days ago. Now he's number 2.
Still in the top 5.
Right. Now he's number 2 among
he's still in the top 5.
Jason, are you talking about NFL MVP or the Outland Trophy? Okay, now look.
They
I
lost
get it.
this week. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, my top 5 is we actually are on the same page. I have Tyreek Hill. The sheer dominance and the explosive playmaking that he brings on a week-to-week basis. And I remember a lot of years where guys like Herman Moore, Chris Carter, Michael Irvin would have like 110 catches in the mid-90s. And they were really good. Great, in fact. But they were never the consistent over-the-field threat that this guy is. And his acceleration is insane. I think about who are the fastest players that I've seen on a football field, regardless of the stopwatch. Darrell Green, Deion Sanders. Tyreek is right in there. He really is. His burst and his top-end speed, and just holding it like a sports car, is amazing. And if he gets over 2,000 yards, I don't want to hear about the system. I don't want to hear about, he's my MVP. He gets 2,000 yards. He's going to get that trophy. Number 2, got to give Dakota. And again, we're only in December. Got to give Dakota credit. He's putting together a really good year as the most scrutinized player in all the league, as the quarterback for America's team. Now, Christian McCaffrey, I'm not going to lie to you. I wonder, though, if this should be Deebo Samuels, though. Did you see Deebo snatching chains yesterday? He was not for that tomfoolery in Philadelphia. I'll tell you that much. He is the prototype for the modern-day playmaker. Little running back, little wide receiver. You get him the ball on reverses, jet sweeps, smoke screens. Just get him the ball and get out of the way, and he makes things happen. Wait a few weeks, and he might be in my top 5. And then you have Myles Garrett, the dominant defender, I believe, in football, right alongside T.J. Watt. He's just incredible. But again, I don't know if that team's going to allow him to flourish because he has to play from ahead to get those numbers that really flash. And then Stroud, C.J. Stroud.
I like your top five. It's not bad. You're not overloaded with quarterbacks. I like that. You got two of them in there. I like the Myles Garrett pick. I really like the Myles Garrett pick. There's some pass rushers, Khalil Mack, Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, that are having great years. Myles Garrett, if the Browns somehow make the playoffs, he'd have a strong case. Good job, as always, Steve. Thank you so much. I think I'm done with you. About to have a little nip here, Steve, as I go into the night. With my, they started me drinking coffee. Now we have a new great sponsor, Fox and Olden. Well, it's come around to that time of the year again. All the Thanksgiving decorations are back in the closet, right where they belong. The Christmas decorations are up and making everything from Miles look bright and cheerful. And the sun goes down pretty early in your cozy, dark neck of the woods. That means it's time to settle into your favorite chair, kick your feet up near the fireplace, and have a glass of Fox and Olden whiskey. You've worked hard today, and you've earned a little relaxation. Fox and Olden whiskeys are created to honor the wild beauty around us. A snow-capped mountain, a field of wildflowers, a roaring waterfall, or maybe even just your own backyard. This holiday season, let these perfectly blended spirits complement the view, a warm fire, maybe a shared meal, packages wrapped and ribboned and left under the tree. However you celebrate, enjoy it to the fullest with the double gold award-winning Fox & Olden Craft American Whiskey. Taste the spirit of the holidays today. Buy online and ship it to your door at foxandolden.com. That's foxandolden.com. Enter my promo code, FEARLESS, and get free shipping. Please drink responsibly like I am. This is with my cup of coffee. I like a little bourbon in my coffee occasionally, and then during the Christmas season, I need it to get through. This is what Ticket TV and all these Deion groupies have, made me to do just so I can get through these shows and all this hating. Oh my God. Now, that does really do something to coffee. Anyway, try out this bourbon here, or this straight bourbon whiskey from Fox and Olden. I'll be having a cup as I talk a little daily dose of Deion with two former Colorado football players, Kerry and Caiden Robertson. Next.
Jason Whitlock, previously on Fearless.
But what people are saying is no different than the people have said, white people have said about Al Sharpton. When you gonna have smoke, Al Sharpton, for the problems within the black community? And so what people are saying to Ben Shapiro and what black people are saying to religious Jewish people, when you gonna have some public smoke for these secular Jews that have built this toxic culture that profits off the debauchery, the degradation of black people? All right, welcome back. As promised, time for another dose of your daily Deion, or a daily dose of Deion Sanders, as we like to call it on this show. Guys, I've been talking about Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes all football season. Before I introduce these next two guests, I don't want anyone to jump to any conclusions that, oh my God, these guys must be the guys that have been talking to Jason all season and that they've spun some narrative to Jason. I think this weekend is the first time I've ever spoken to either one of these guys, Kerry and Caiden Robertson. I don't want anybody connecting anything that I've said on this show leading up to today to these two guys because it is not true. And I don't know who their friends are back on Colorado's campus, but I don't want anybody to connect it to their friends that are still on the team. I've had my own independent sources that I've been monitoring and communicating with, keeping me abreast about what's going on with Colorado football. These two guys were members of the 2022 Colorado football team under Karl Dorrell, and they went through the spring with Deion Sanders before getting kicked off the team. And so I just want to clear the air. I don't want them connected to anything that I've said before today. Now, today, after we talk to them, it may have a little something to do with what I say moving forward about Deion and the Buffaloes football program. But I want to thank both of you guys, Owen and Caiden. Owen is in the black shirt. Caiden is in the gray shirt. I want to thank both of you guys for coming in here to Nashville. They were both linebackers at the University of Colorado on the Karl Dorrell 2022 team. Were playing linebacker during the spring for Deion before getting booted off the team with a bunch of other players. Owen, I believe, was a scholarship player and recruited by, a dozen Power 5 schools around the country. Caiden, injury-riddled high school career, was a walk-on who played as a freshman for Karl Dorrell and then went through the spring with Deion and the Buffaloes. Just wanted to give that bit of background. Thank both of you guys for being here. And so, Caiden, I'm going to start with you. Just walk us through your high school career and how you got to Colorado and your first experience, your experience with Karl Dorrell and that Colorado football team.
Yeah, so out of high school, actually through high school, I was riddled with injuries, like you said. And then, coming out of high school, I did play a year at junior college, and then they recruited me and offered me this is the University of Colorado. They recruited me and offered me a preferred walk-on spot. And where I was at in that part of my life, that was just the best option for me, so I decided to take it. As far as Karl Dorrell and that staff, they were, coming in as a walk-on. I couldn't have imagined them treating me any better. That staff treated me amazing, and it was a great experience being with him.
And you actually played in 2022.
Yes, sir.
How much or what?
Yeah, so I worked my way up slowly as a walk-on. You're not just given every opportunity. And then I ended up playing in 3 games, and then I was able to take my redshirt years, which I was thankful for.
Inside linebacker, outside linebacker.
I played inside linebacker, but I played. I saw the field on special teams, kickoff return, and kickoff and punt return.
Gotcha. And then Owen, same deal. Walk me through your high school experience and how you ended up at Colorado and what that first year was like playing for Karl Dorrell.
Yeah, so I went to high school at Mater Dei. Those of you that are familiar with it, I'm sure know it's a pretty competitive program.
Is that where Todd Marinovich went? Did he?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead. That's old. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, but so went to Mater Dei. We won a national championship. We had a great coach.
You won a national championship while you were there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
And he was a pleasure to play for, but he's liked to challenge us. And so went through high school with a pretty difficult standard to live up to. Ended up getting recruited by a couple different schools. Chose Colorado at the end of the day. And similarly to Caiden, I got there, worked hard. I was a freshman. There were a lot of 6-year guys on the team, 24-year-olds, 23-year-olds. So 18-year-old kid living away from home for the first time. And I just wanted to be the best I could be. Football was my plan. So I worked really hard. My first year there, I had 5 different position coaches and 3 different head coaches. So there was a lot of...
Well, hold on. Walk me through. Well, I guess Carl Durrell, and then he got fired mid-season, I guess, and then Deion.
And then we had an interim coach between the two.
And then how do you have 5 different position coaches, though?
So I signed, and the position coach who recruited me got fired 2 days after I signed. So that was 1. Then I had the coach who replaced him. That's 2. I got to Colorado, and 3 months in, they changed my position from defensive end outside linebacker to inside linebacker. So then I had my 3rd position coach, which was Coach Smith, great guy, by the way. And then mid-season, when the firing happened, they changed the position coaches. So I got my 4th position coach, Jeff Smart, also a great guy. And then they brought Deion in, and I got my 5th position coach, Coach Hart.
Gotcha. All right, so many of us remember Deion's first press conference or first meeting with the team. It's taped, it's on film. Deion's still coaching at Jackson State, but he comes to Colorado and has a press conference that he films or his sons film and they release on the internet. And so that seems a bit weird to me that the first meeting with the team wouldn't be condensed to just the team for the team's ears only. Was there a meeting before that, or was that the actual the meeting or the highlights we saw? That was you all's first introduction to Deion Sanders.
Caiden.
That was the first time we met him, heard, and that we actually heard that he was getting hired that day. Because the media kind of gets to it before we even did.
And so we're sitting at home watching on the internet, and he's saying, I'm coming, and I'm bringing Louis with me, and basically telling people to hit the transfer portal. You guys I'm sitting there, I'm an old man, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. This ain't the right message for a head coach. As young kids, what were you all thinking listening to that?
So as he walked into that meeting room with his camera crew and slew of coaches, I had an opinion about him already, and I was a little bit cautious. I knew he had a reputation, and I thought that maybe this coach isn't the guy I want to play for. And he came in and gave us the message, I'm bringing my luggage, it's Louis. You guys need to work hard or leave. If you're scared, that's good. And honestly, it changed my opinion of him. I really liked what he was saying because it was a challenge. He told me, prove to me that you're not scared, you're not going to run away. And it stoked a fire in my ego a little bit. And I thought, okay, I'm here. He's coming, I'm here. So it made me want to impress him and play for him. So from that moment forward, I was ready to do what it took to be there.
And so, but your initial reaction before you heard from him was you didn't like Deion, or not your cup of tea as a coach. Maybe liked him as a football player and a personality, but maybe you were hesitant about him being as a coach before you heard him talk.
Yes, sir.
Caiden, what was your thought sitting in that meeting?
Well, first off, I was very open-minded to the whole situation. I was already a kid that was, I was a walk-on. I had a chip on my shoulder with something to prove. And, when we heard about the hire, I was like, who better to prove it to than Deion Sanders, right? Sitting in that meeting, I was excited because, like Owen said, he basically told us, he's coming to weed out the weak, and, you better be ready to work. And, someone like me, that's something that really excited me. And, I felt good about it initially.
I could definitely see that as a walk-on, your mindset going in was like, well, I got to outwork everybody anyway. And so this guy's saying he's going to value the people that work the hardest. Well, I was already going to do that anyway because I'm behind the 8 ball. Is that kind of your thought?
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. That's always, who I've been, is someone that's just going to work and, put my head down. And, when he was hired and came in there, what I initially took from that was that, like you said, he's someone that's going to value that. And if I can do, what I've always done, he'll take notice to that. And so I look forward to it.
So that's how you guys responded. How about some of your other teammates? When that meeting's over and you guys go back to your dorms or apartments or wherever and start gossiping among your other teammates, did it land the same way with everybody, or were there some guys who was like, man, that was crazy?
There were definitely a lot of mixed opinions. You know, we were expecting to meet him and interact with him, not just have a speech. And so after he finished his introduction, he left the room and flew back to Jackson because he was still under contract there. And we didn't really get the chance to have an informed opinion about him because we hadn't really met the guy yet. You know, it was the same as watching him give a speech on TV. He's just standing right in front of you. So there was mixed reception. There were people who thought, this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to me. You know, potentially the best defensive player of all time, you know, minus Lawrence Taylor, is going to be our coach. And there were other people who thought, I'm not so sure about this guy. You know, is he a good coach? Is he the right coach for me? So there was definitely a lot of inconsistency in the reception.
To add to that, you know, I was really good friends with our starting quarterback, and you know, you can
JT Stroud?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can
Actually, no, JT.
Yeah.
I wanted him to transfer to Ball State.
Okay. You can understand how that speech could come off to someone like JT as, you know, threatening. And you know, that's basically, you know, what I got from him is that, yeah, this is ridiculous. He's coming in and basically telling us, you know, my son's going to start.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that and actually I did. I think I talked to JT the day of Deion's, because I called and I was like, well, hey, JT, what are you going to do? Let me call Ball State to see if we have an interest. And what did, that probably was the anointing of his son as the starting quarterback before he took a snap on the field. And Deion's been very defensive about that. In his press conference early in the season when they were winning, he was mocking people that, you know, questioned him handing his son the starting job before he had ever practiced. Do you, obviously that hits JT, but that should have been a red flag to others as well. Not that his son's not talented, but everybody wants to feel like it's a fair starting line or fair. Do you remember him talking about his son and the whole Louis? He's bringing Louis with him. How did that strike you, Eoghan?
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely struck me as, like I said earlier, a challenge. You know, I'm bringing Louis, so unless you're Hermes, like, you can't get on the field. You know, you got to be better than what he's bringing in. And so I knew he was bringing a quarterback. I didn't really think about it too much since I don't play that position. I didn't know what he was bringing in terms of linebackers. That day we did have the chance to meet Coach Hart, the linebacker coach. And I give props to him. He taught me a lot, and he's a really excellent position coach. And so we got the chance to meet him, and I got to kind of learn that he coached in a style that was conducive to how I learn. And so I thought, I don't care what this dude's bringing in. You know, I'm here to work. Similarly to Caiden, I was a contributor on the last team. You know, I played in all 12 games, and I was a team captain as an 18-year-old kid. And, you know, I came in being told that I was never going to see the field. And so that was a mentality I was used to, being told I'm not good enough, the underdog. And it just really fueled me to work as hard as I could. So I was there to stay.
Well, now hold on though, Eoghan. You're 6'3", 240 pounds. You played on a high school team that's national champion, as you say. Texas had recruited you. I think Arizona. I mean, were you really sitting here thinking you're not good enough? You got the physical tools, and other schools are recruiting you, but you still have this chip on your shoulder, like people are doubting you?
Absolutely. I played defensive end my whole time in high school. My senior year, I played a little bit of outside linebacker and got to cover the flats. But I mean, I didn't start playing football until I was 15. And so my whole high school career, like you said, I'm 6'3", 240, run a 4.5 40. Coaches could basically tell me, see ball, get ball. So I would just get on the field and go tackle whoever they threw it to. And so coming into college, playing inside linebacker where you have to be the general of that field and get people lined up and know what to do. I just, I was out of my depth, and I was prepared to do everything it took to be the best, because there were people telling me, you're not an inside linebacker, you're an edge. You don't have enough experience to excel at being a Mike backer or a Will backer. And in high school, like you said, I was recruited by several other schools. I was committed to Texas for a little bit. And after I parted ways with them, there were a lot of people speculating that the reason I parted ways with Texas is because they realized I wasn't good enough to play Power 5 ball. And that's why I ended up at Colorado, a 4-8 school that ended up going 1-11 and getting all the coaches fired. So there's been a lot of comments about me and my ability to play Power 5 football.
Gotcha. And so you don't get to meet Deion on that day in December, but when a new coach comes in, before you guys start practicing, does Deion have individual meetings with every player on the team when he does get to Boulder and before you guys start practice?
I'm going to talk about my interaction with him later, or lack thereof. I haven't had a meeting with him.
Yes, so that did not happen. We were supposed to have team meetings with Deion every Wednesday. And so the first 4 weeks of spring training, we're all very excited. Most of us are excited. Some people are pretty apprehensive about getting to work out for Prime and go prove that they have what it takes. And the first 3 weeks, he skipped the team meeting that he had scheduled with us. And so the first 3 weeks we're working out, we did not get to see him, talk to him, interact with him, hear from him, anything.
This is the whole team.
Yeah.
And you say every Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
And you guys you have the introductory press conference that everybody films, and then when he gets to Boulder, there's scheduled team meetings, and you never meet with the head coach.
Correct.
Do you see the head coach? Do you see him?
So he keeps the door to his office closed, and usually during practice he's on the golf cart. So your personal, intimate interaction with him is pretty limited.
Hold on. And again, I don't know the answers to these questions when I'm asking. I guess I'm being a bad lawyer, but this is blowing my mind. You have a new coach. He comes and has a press conference and gives you a speech, and then you never have another team meeting with him for 3 or 4 weeks or after he arrives?
Yeah, so we had scheduled team meetings that were then canceled after we waited for an hour. And then...
Whoa. You all would show up thinking there was a team meeting that Deion was going to lead. You'd be sitting in the area waiting, and he just wouldn't be there?
So they were typically pre-practice meetings. So before we go lift and run, so we would get there, and the meeting's supposed to be 45 minutes long, an hour long. And so we would get there and sit there and wait for the speech before we go out to the field to compete against each other, basically. And we would wait. There was no phones in the meeting room, no water, no talking. So we're just sitting here waiting for about an hour. And then towards the end, when we had 10 minutes left in the meeting, one of the coaches would come in and say, hey, he's not coming, you guys go down and get dressed.
That's your memory too, Kerry?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
I got to marinate. And so let's say Sean Lewis or Charles Kelly, they wouldn't, at these meetings, get up and talk instead of Deion, or?
Usually they were, to my recollection, we also had special teams meetings scheduled on the same days.
So, yeah, but that started towards like a month before spring ball.
Yeah.
So the first month and a half of the semester, we didn't have any like instructional stuff going on. We did, but they were all individual positions. You would meet with your linebacker coach and he would teach you these 4 plays. But, I can only speak from my experience. But from my understanding, those first couple months, the coaches were pretty on edge too. And so I don't think one of them wanted to go up and be in the front and be given a speech during a meeting time that was slotted for someone else, because that could be interpreted as pretty disrespectful. So
there's no individual meetings with players, and there's no team meetings. And then you're telling me at the fourth one, he finally does?
Yeah.
And what was that? Was that before the spring game, or was that before what?
No, so this is in January. This is right when the semester is starting.
Gotcha.
And so at this point, it's introduction time. We're starting to learn Charles Kelly's defense. We are getting to know the strength coaches and just starting the strength program, evaluating us, seeing where we are. And so the first time he met with us after the press conference was the 4th or 5th week of school.
And what was that meeting like? Did he just do all the talking, or did you all get to interact with him?
Caiden, do you remember that meeting?
I don't remember much interaction. It was just kind of him talking, to us or at us, and, telling us, this is what it is and this is how we're going to run things. And other than that, it's not, there was not much interaction.
Yeah. I think there was, like he said, not much. There was a little bit. I think his first meeting was about opportunity. And so he walked in and he asked, what's your greatest asset? And asked around players, mostly guys that had transferred in. And eventually someone said time. And he said, bingo, take advantage of your time today, get better because you never get a second back. Go work out.
So it was a short meeting.
Yes, sir.
And so that takes us through January. What's going on? When does spring practice start, or what's going on in February and March?
So spring practice started the second to last week of March. So for all of January, all of February, the first half of March, we were just working out, getting ready to go, basically getting strong and fast before we put the pads on.
And so my memory, we'd have these morning workout sessions, the entire team. And the strength and conditioning coach led those, but the head coach was always there. Is that how these things operated?
I saw him maybe 3 or 4 times, and he would just come in periodically and watch us lift or whatever. And from what I saw, he was always looking, and it was at us, the guys that were there the year before, looking for, articles of clothing that weren't right or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen the video.
You can add to that.
I'm sure you've seen the video of the one kid in the weight room getting kicked out for wearing white socks. And that was one time he came in and was observing our lift. But typically, we had a pretty unusual lifting schedule. That strength coach is amazing. I really give props to that staff. They've treated me with nothing but kindness. But the skill players would work out at, say, 7 in the morning. Then the combo players would work out at 8:30, and then the big players would work at 10. So you worked based on your position, not based on, the whole team didn't work out together. And so during those workouts, it was just us and the strength coaches. And like Caiden said, Deion would come in, once or twice a week, just kind of look around, make sure things were operating to his standard. And then every Wednesday, like I said, we had the team meetings. And the reason we had those team meetings is so everyone was there at the same time. Because then on Wednesday, we would go out to the indoor practice facility and we would have a team run. And every position would work out at the same time together, compete as a team. And all the coaches were there for that, and Deion was there every week.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So once we moved into February and March, he would show up at these Wednesday deals?
Yeah, he was there every Wednesday once we started conditioning as a team, which was the second week of February, I think.
Gotcha. And then so your experience through the spring, and Caiden, I want to start because I do know this about Caiden. Caiden has a medical condition that sidetracked your football career. Walk us through that, the time frame, what happened to you, and walk us through that.
Yeah, so right around late February, I was having some issues in the weight room. I was getting really lightheaded, and one day I actually collapsed. And so obviously the training staff do what they do, and they start running some tests, trying to figure out what's going on. So you name it, CT scans, MRIs. I was in and out of the doctor's office for like a month. And on March 24th of 2023, they had figured everything out. They had figured out I had a mild heart condition that was, non-fatal or anything that I could play with. But they had seen something in one of the MRIs in my C1 cervical spine. They didn't think much of it. So they sent me down to the neurosurgeon in Denver, just to precautionary, they wanted, I thought I was going to get cleared because they didn't think anything of it. And so I get down there, get in the office, and basically he just drops this bomb on me, right? That what I have in my neck is known as a cavernous malformation. And so
Cavernous malformation?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so let me break that down for what it actually is, and I'll tell you what he told me. And so what he said is, these cavernous malformations, they're hard to predict, and they have the capability to rupture or bleed. And because of where mine is at, in my C1 cervical spine, if mine is to rupture, I will lose function of everything, below the neck, including my respiratory system. So basically, if this thing ruptures, I'll suffocate to death and, I'll die. And then, so at that point in time, I ask, what are options? What do you do? He said, well, you really have two. He tells me, first off, you can have surgery. And I was like, okay, so what's the thing with surgery? What's the deal with surgery? He's like, well, you're not, there's not lack of risk. It's a risky surgery because of where it's at. So I was like, well, can you break those risks down for me? He said, yeah. The first thing he tells me, he's like, there's a small chance, it's small, but there's a chance you could become, like a quadriplegic. You could lose function of everything, because of, again, where it's at. Then he goes in to tell me that, you could lose function of certain limbs and stuff. And then, you could have neurological damage. And so what does that mean? And I'll just give you the example he gave me, right? So he put his hand behind his head like this, and he's like, we all know that where my hand is, even though I can't see it, I know where my hand is. I know exactly where it's at, and so I could lose that ability. I could lose that function, which they're not things you really want to hear as a 20-year-old kid. Like those are all like pretty scary things. And then I was like, well, so what's option two? He's like, well, you can play the odds and hope that thing doesn't rupture in your neck. And so basically I have, a ticking time bomb in my neck right now. And so after that, I was declared medically ineligible.
The football program tells you, hey, you can't play here anymore. It's too high risk. And that makes sense to you and your family, and you probably didn't want to play anymore knowing the risk, correct?
Obviously I understood the risk, but with my high school career going through knee injuries left and right, I had sacrificed so much to be where I was at Colorado. I'd given up and battled back from so much to actually get there, just to say because I have another situation, another adversity rise, to say that I didn't want to play anymore that's not the case. So I wanted to try to figure out a way, if possible, to play again.
And you play for Coach Hart as well? You're playing inside linebacker?
Yes, sir.
And so you tell Coach Hart what's going on, but you say you never got an opportunity to talk with Deion.
Yeah, so obviously I expressed, I relayed the information that I was given to Coach Hart directly. And one of the first things I said to him is I'd like to have a conversation with the head football coach. And as a man, I wanted to tell him those things. I wanted him to hear it coming from me and not, some third party, whether it be the training staff or Coach Hart himself. And then I wanted to talk, courses of action, where do we go from here? But because the training staff had the information, they had asked me things like, who do you want to know? Like, we can give this information as long as you say it's okay. So yeah, I want, I don't want pity. I don't want that. I don't want this team to be successful. But I would like Deion to know, and I'd like to have an eventual conversation with him about everything. And so he was directly told from Coach Hart and from the training staff, what was going on.
But you never got that meeting?
No. So actually, after I was diagnosed, I flew home that day. Mom wanted her son home, and then I came back, and the next week I expressed that I wanted that conversation. So I really tried for like three and a half weeks to get a meeting with him, a sit-down meeting with him. And we had stuff scheduled. And actually on April 30th, I sent Coach Hart a text saying, hey, when can we meet with him? So that day he's like, we'll shoot for Thursday. So you're looking at Thursday, May 4th. And haven't really heard anything from him, so I texted him on that Thursday early in the morning, hey, are we gonna be able to make today work? And he sends me a text, no, he's out of town. And that happened, a few times. And so at that point, it became very clear that, for whatever reason, Deion didn't want to have a conversation with me, and he was kind of, refusing to meet with me.
And so what were you hoping to accomplish in that conversation with Deion?
Well, like I said earlier, as a man, I wanted him to hear those things from me and not from somebody else. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, I wanted to talk, where my status was, because obviously at that point in time I couldn't play, but, I'd worked hard to be there, and I wanted to help out in any way. I wanted to be around and help support the team. And, those are basically the two things that I wanted to talk about.
So someone listening, I don't want to put thoughts in your head, but again, I'm old enough to be your dad. I could see you saying like, hey, I took on the challenge of playing for one of the greatest football players of all time. And, I was part of CU. And, if this is the end, I would like to meet Deion and have a conversation with him, because he's one of the greatest football players of all time, and he was my coach for a short time. And so I would think, just as a football fan, football lover, you would want to meet and have even if it's just for 5 minutes. I tried the best I could, appreciate the opportunity. If I could be involved with the team in some kind of way, but just meeting Deion would be kind of cool, no?
Yeah, I guess it'd be interesting.
I don't think that's a bad. I'm saying, if I was a kid, and I'm gonna date you guys, but let Roger Staubach or Walter Payton was my coach, I want to have a conversation with him, just because it's like, man, I'm coached by Walter Payton and I've given it my all. I think that's normal.
Yeah, definitely. But I also think that he's the head football coach, and whether he liked it or not, I was one of his players. I was on this team, and with that being said, I want conversation, I want communication between the two of us, and that wasn't provided.
The other thing, are you a believer, Caiden?
Yes, I am.
And so Deion sells himself pretty hard as a believer and a Christian, and so I could see you bringing those Christian expectations into that as well. Like, he's a great Christian, he'll be concerned. I'm a young person that's going through difficulty. Deion's gone through difficulty in his life. I'd like to just, I call myself a believer, and so people place certain expectations on me.
Yeah.
Because I'm a believer, and I have to deal with that. And so is that also part of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I had heard the things he said about his faith, and when he got hired and when I was diagnosed, I thought that that's where we could definitely connect. Outside from football, we could connect on our faith. And I never got that opportunity.
And so your time with Deion is brief, and as a player, it's even briefer. But you never had a single conversation with Deion?
Not one.
Not you didn't bump into him and eating lunch or at the training table?
No, nothing. And I'm sure we're going to get into it in here in just a little bit. But he made himself very unapproachable. With the things, his door being closed and the sign that says, don't come in unless asked to come in or whatever it says, and you got to take your shoes off to walk on the red carpet that he has outside of his office.
Hold it. There's a sign on the door that says what?
Do not step on this. He's got like a red carpet outside of his door, and don't step on this mat unless your shoes are off, and don't come in unless invited, or something like that.
He has a doormat in front of his floor that says, "Did I say you could come in?"
Holy cow! It's a doormat? I just want to be clear. Caiden's calling it a red carpet.
It was red.
I think it was a little different in the spring than the current setup is. Currently, he has a doormat in front of his office that says, "Did I say you could come in?" with a question mark. I do remember there being a red carpet in the spring.
So, Owen, walk me through your dealings with. How did spring practice go for you? Let's start there.
Okay. So spring practice went really well. Like I said, I've been playing linebacker for less than a year, and I wanted to learn. I had a lot to learn. So from the day he came in with that introductory press conference, I was working. I went home for Christmas, worked, came back, worked. The strength coaches can tell you I was in the weight room about 2 hours before practice every day, except for Wednesday, because on Wednesday we practiced at 6 a.m. I was in the weight room 2 hours before practice every day. I would get a workout in before practice, then we'd practice. I would stay in condition after practice. Then we would have film. I would watch film. Then I would go and meet extra with Coach Hart and Coach Kelly to watch more film and just get personal feedback about how I can be a better linebacker and a better leader on the field, a better player. And I do want to give them props. Coach Kelly's defense was the most fun I've had playing in a defense ever. And Coach Hart taught me a lot about being a linebacker. But I was working really hard, and I was getting better every day, learning a lot. And by the end of spring, I was the second highest in production on the defense behind one of the safeties. The way it worked is every practice, every play, you would get points. So you get positive points for making a play, like deflecting a pass, making a tackle, and you would get negative points for mental errors, missed tackles, loafs, things like that. And I led the team in second highest on the defense in points by the end of spring. And so, I thought things were going really well.
Let me. As a journalist, we're taught if your mother says she loves you, get a second opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me just push back a little. In spring, you're saying you have the second most points based off their system.
Yeah.
There's some safety that has more points than you, but you're number 2. That's your contention. Because, again, someone's going to hop in the comments and say, no, he was number 18.
Yeah.
You're standing firm. You were ranked number 2 based on their system.
Yeah, and I'm sure that'll happen. Someone will jump in the comments and say that I'm making it up. We had 5 weeks of spring ball. The first week, it was just introduction. And then the second and third week, we had scrimmages. And it was third week of spring ball after the second scrimmage. I was the second highest on the team in points. And the week after that was the spring game. So it was the end of spring ball.
Gotcha. And so you're running on the first team defense, second team defense, what?
So basically we had a 1A and a 1B, 2A, 2B. So, your first string would go in and your linebackers would play 4 plays and they would come out, and your first string D line and DBs would stay in, and your second set of linebackers would go in. So the groups were pretty mixed, but I was running with the first team and the second team, and I thought I was doing really well. And then the first day of practice before the spring game, so that Monday, I hurt my back, and I actually ruptured a disc in my T-spine. And I didn't tell anyone. I told coach after practice because I was like, hey, coach, I felt slow today. I just wanted to let you know that I hurt my back, but I'm in this. I'm here to play. And I told Coach Hart that. And then, I was on the third team. All of a sudden, spring game comes, hardly play. And then on April 23rd, which was the morning after the spring game, I was out at lunch with my family, and it was 11:56, and I got a text from Coach Hart saying, need to meet with you, be here at noon. So, it's 4 minutes away, freaking out a little bit. I hug and kiss my family. Thank you guys for coming. So good to see you. Be safe. Have a good flight. Jump in the car, rush over to the facility, and I get there, and it's time for my meeting. And he tells me, hey, I was wrong. Your meeting's at 2:15. Don't leave, just hang out. And so I'm walking around the facility, and I'm seeing all of my teammates here. I see a couple of the guys that Deion brought in, but mostly just guys that were there from when I was there. So I'm hanging out, talking with a couple other linebackers, just like, what do you guys think is going to happen? Why are we all here? I thought this was just a individual, hey, coach needs to see you. And so 2:15 rolls around, get in the elevator, go up to the 4th floor, which is where all the coaches have their offices. And Coach Hart meets me. He says, hey, we're going to Prime's office. So we walk in to Deion's little space, and Cordell Stewart, he's a former quarterback for the Steelers and for Colorado, is sitting on the right, Deion's in the middle, and Coach Hart sits down on the left. And I sit right here across from them. And Coach Hart looks me in the eye and he says, hey, Owen, you're a heck of a player. You're a really smart kid, one of the smartest I've ever coached, but we have to let you go. And so Prime was just kind of sitting here looking off past me, and he turns to Hart and goes, tell him why. And so Hart turns back to me and says, you just haven't been playing linebacker enough, and we need an older, more physical, stronger guy than you are. So you don't have a spot here at CU anymore. You're not a part of this team, and you need to find a new home, and we wish you luck. And so, my heart sank, and it was hard for me to hear. But, I held myself together, and I stood up, and I stuck my hand out, and I shook Coach Hart's hand, and I said, thank you, Coach. You've taught me a lot. I really appreciate it. He said, you're welcome. And I shook Cordell Stewart's hand, and I said, thank you, sir. And I went to shake Deion's hand and said, thank you, Coach. And he said, yeah, buddy, you got it, and pointed at the door. And so I walked out of the door. He wouldn't even look me in the eye. And
Did he shake your hand?
I think so. I think he shook my hand and pointed at the door, but he wouldn't look at me. Just said, there's the door, get out. And so I'm walking out there, and I open the door. And stretching down the hallway, there's just this line of players, my brothers, these guys that I've bled for and cried for. And, they all kind of look like puppies with their tail between their legs. Everyone's terrified. And I don't know that they're about to have the same conversation I just had. I'm hoping for their sake, because I love them, that they're going to go in there and be told that, hey, we want you. You're on this team. But I have a feeling that's not going to happen. So I go down to the locker room, time to clean out my locker. They didn't give me a bag or anything to clean my locker out with. So I had to go to the area where the janitors throw the trash away. And I took a trash bag from the dumpster that happened to be empty. And I came back to my locker, and I took my nameplate off and put that in there because I wanted to keep that. Took all my workout clothes and shoes and put them in my trash bag. And I probably sat in the locker room for 10 minutes just soaking in that this was my last time being a Colorado football player. And as I sat there in those 10 minutes, probably 15 other guys stepped out of the elevator into the locker room, and they just had tears streaming down their face. And so, that suspicion I had earlier had just been confirmed, that these guys just had the same conversation I had, told that contract they signed saying, hey, you play here, you're our guy, it's null and void. You're not a Colorado player anymore, you need to leave. And so,
How long was this meeting? How long were you inside Deion's office?
45 seconds. That's probably a little hyperbolic, but it was less than 2 minutes.
And before you got into that meeting, had it crossed your mind that people were going to be cut and that you possibly could be cut from the team? Because, again, I'm old and I played in a different era. That's just not what you – I mean, the first 2 years I was at Ball State, I was a nightmare. I mean, I was a nightmare. Didn't go to class, reported drunk and out of shape. You know, I was an idiot when I got there. And then again, I was a great high school football player, but I was an idiot because all I knew about college, no one in my family had ever gone off to college. All I knew about college was a movie called Animal House. And so I said, I'm going to go play a little football, get drunk, smoke a little weed, have fun, and play a little football. And so I didn't even approach it as a business. I was a nightmare. They couldn't kick me off the team. And we were signing 1-year deals.
Yeah.
Our scholarships were 1 year at a time, but it was just an understanding, unless I committed murder or, you know, broke some crime, they wasn't doing nothing to me on this team. And you know, trust me, did they have me up running every morning at 6 a.m. and making my life miserable? Yes, but you know, that was nothing. I mean, I'm gonna drink that off. And then I did figure things out the next 2 years, but it's foreign to me that college coaches, that sounds like an NFL experience. Hey, you're cut, bring your playbook.
Well, you know, like you said, Jason, as an 18 and 19-year-old, I feel like you're not supposed to have it all figured out. And back in the day before the portal, that's what it was. You know, you were at a program and they would develop you. And it's just not like that nowadays. So, you know, I was 19, I was a freshman, first year of college, and I was told, you know, you can't be here, you're cut.
Before that happened, though,
yeah,
it was in your mind that could happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, leading up to that, there were a couple instances that made me think, I don't think he's going to keep any of us. You know, we had been told by coaches that there were going to be cuts, that choices were going to be made about who was allowed to stay with the team and who was not allowed to stay with the team. And I had 4 interactions with Deion leading up to that exit meeting that made me think, you know, I don't think he cares how hard we work. I think he's just going to get rid of us. And these 4 interactions were all in the same place. They were all in the elevator going up from the locker room. These times I was alone in that elevator with him, you know, just 2 men. And the first 3 times, I'm just trying to make myself known, let him know, hey, Coach, I respect you. I want to be here. So I'd say, hey, Coach Prime, how you doing? It's good to see you. And he was on his phone typing, I don't know if it was a message or a tweet, and he would just look up at me and go back to his phone. You know, not even a nod, no acknowledgement that I was even there. Just flat out ignore me. And then the 4th time, you know, I did the same thing. Hey, Coach Prime, how you doing? It's good to see you. And he looked up from his phone and said, hey, buddy, press 5. So I pressed the 5th floor and just shut up. Because, you know, that was the 4th time I'd tried to speak with him when we were alone. You know, not even in front of the cameras, tough guy act, just I was trying to talk to him man to man, and he wouldn't acknowledge me. And that really made me think, especially considering, you know, he walks out and he's dapping up the people that he brought in and hugging on the players that came with him from Jackson and the guys he brought in from South Florida and all these other schools, that considering he wouldn't even nod in my direction, I thought, I'm not sure how much of a chance I have to stay here. Because like I said, we'd been told that they were making cuts.
I read somewhere that you weren't the only one, that was kind of commonplace with the holdover guys. Deion didn't talk to them, didn't acknowledge them, and that some people interpreted it as like, oh, this is just a test. He's trying to see if I'm weak and if I'll quit.
That's definitely what I thought. And, you know, I don't know what experiences my teammates had with him, but my initial thought was, he's testing me. He wants to see if I'm going to quit, if I'm going to drop out because I think he doesn't like me. And I didn't, you know, I just kept working. And like I said, you know, I had that interaction, exact same interaction 4 times. If I was going to quit, I would have stopped saying hi to him. but he wasn't going to break me. And I fought till the end until they told me I wasn't allowed to fight anymore. And so the reason I'm still at Colorado is because even though they can cut you from the team, that contract you sign is a 4-year contract. I know you said back when you played it was a single year. Nowadays, the way they format it, you sign for 4 years. And it's 4 years athletic aid guaranteed unless you murder someone, like you said, And so they can remove you from the team, but they cannot cancel your full ride academic aid. And they didn't tell us this. They just told us, you need to leave. You don't go here anymore. And so myself and 2 others knew that we were allowed to stay. And we were cut on a Sunday, the portal closed on a Friday, and it takes the school 2 days to put you in the portal. And I wasn't prepared to make a $200,000 decision in 3 days. So I decided to stay and keep my scholarship for the time being, and so did those 2 other gentlemen. But no one on the team was told we were allowed to keep our scholarship. So most guys freaked out, and that's how you had 50 dudes enter the portal on the same day.
His experience with Deion in terms of no communication, you be in a, were you ever one-on-one with Deion or felt like you were being ignored by Deion?
No. I mean, I was never like in a one-on-one setting with him like Owen was, and had I been, I probably would have done the same thing. Hey, coach, how you doing? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with trying to establish a relationship with somebody. And obviously, I don't know what the deal was or his reasoning behind not wanting to do that or being unwilling to do those types of things.
So, again, because I'm so far removed, and you played at obviously a great high school, there's other kids around the country. Have you heard of any other experiences like this from any guys that you played maybe high school football with or camps with, that's kind of how it is now in the transfer portal, or the culture is that kind of cold and impersonal?
I haven't heard that. The high school I went to, my coach treated us all like we were his sons. We were family. And the brothers I played with, who are now at other institutions, they all rave about their head coaches to me. I was speaking with them about potential playing destinations for myself in the future. And they all couldn't say enough good things about their head coach. He takes good care of us. He cares about us. He is always making sure that we're doing okay. So that's, to my knowledge, not a common experience.
So you get cut, and a bunch of other guys get cut. You decide to stick around. But today you are entering. Today is the first day I think the portal's open for this next. You're entering the portal now.
Yeah, so as of about 12 o'clock Tennessee time, I'm actually currently in the portal. So I entered this morning and got the confirmation back from Colorado and the NCAA. And so I'm now in the portal. And speaking about that, I do want to thank the athletic department because they've been super kind to me. Obviously, I didn't enter the portal in April because I wasn't prepared to give up my education. I want to be a lawyer one day, and that's super important to me. I didn't want to end up at a JUCO. And I stuck around, and they're actually going to keep me on aid while I explore the portal. So I'm super grateful to the athletic department for that. But, I was told that I did not have a scholarship or a spot at CU anymore. And the only reason I was able to take advantage of this opportunity is because I knew the rule that I was not made aware of when I was cut.
So I do want to go a cut deeper or a little different angle with you, Owen, just because it's not just the believer thing with Deion. Deion has this race narrative that, he's doing this for the upliftment of black people. And I don't know what the audience can know, but Owen is one of our African-American brothers. He's half black, half white. And I'm just wondering for you if the whole racial angle with Deion and what he was allegedly going to do for black coaches and black athletes, is that any part of your disappointment or any part of how you evaluated Deion?
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, I'm African American, half black, half white. And I'm super close with my dad now, but when I grew up as a kid, you know, it was just my mom and I. He wasn't really around. And, you know, I was kind of longing for that father figure, especially in a coach. You know, that's such a easy position for a young person to look up to and depend on. And, you know, he talked about how he wants kids from single mom households and he wants young black men and things like this. And I was really, really excited because I thought that I was going to have a chance to basically have a discipleship underneath one of the greatest athletes of all time. I thought he was going to come in and mentor me and kind of take me under his wing because he wanted to see people like me who grew up with their mom and are of African American descent. He wanted to see them excel, and then to be ignored and eventually dismissed hurt. But I mean, I can't speak to why he did it, so I just have to respect that he did.
So they cut 50 guys, and so, or how many ever they did, but do you think, have you thought, like, if I didn't rupture my back, would things have played out different? Is it potentially that, well, this guy's banged up, he's injured, let's cut bait? Do you think the injury played a role?
I don't think so. I thought it might, so I didn't get the MRI until after I got cut because I was worried it was something worse than just a ruptured disc. I thought maybe I had, you know, cracked a vertebrae or something. And I knew that when they were making cuts, injuries were going to be a big decision. You know, I won't say who, but one of our best players hurt himself pretty badly. And I mean, he was in consideration for being All-American, All-Pac-12. And they got rid of him. And I mean, he could have been a contributor to them, especially after watching this last season. But I did not want them to know that I had an injury. So I refrained from getting the MRI until after I got cut.
Caiden, did you stay on campus in the fall as well?
Yeah, I did.
And so, and this is to both of you all, but I'll start with Caiden. You're watching all the excitement and hype around Colorado football. The whole campus is on fire. Everybody's Coach Prime, everything. What are you thinking?
Jason, can I add to that too?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And so, like, you said that you wanted to be a part of the team still and be around them, but you couldn't get a hold of Deion. So, like, after that, did you end up getting to be around the team?
Yeah, so I got back from summer with no communication. You know, I had texted, heard nothing back. So I finally texted Coach Hart and said, hey, you know, because, I mean, in all reality, my life was turned on a 180. You know, I went from playing sports my whole life to nothing. And, you know, many of you might know that, like, that's not the easiest thing to do. So I texted him saying, hey, you know, it's driving me crazy not being able to play. Can I at least be a part of it? Can I be on the sidelines? He's like, he basically told me, you know, hey, that's not our problem. The answer is no, like you can't be on the sideline, you know, and then we found out later, and they told us via email, like through the athletic director and stuff, you know, you have to be an active member of the team to, you know, be on the sideline. So obviously The Rock and Lil Wayne are active members of the roster.
Offset, the baby, Key Glock, they're all. Anyway, so after hearing that, what was it like being on that campus? See the whole campus fired up about CU football, and you having had, did you go to games? Did you root for them? Did you talk to guys on the team?
I did not go to the games. I couldn't bring myself to do it, you know, because of where I started from. You know, Colorado's got like one of the greatest traditions. You know, they run behind Ralphie, and it's an amazing experience being there. You know, so for the TCU game last year, I was actually sitting in the stands, and you know, I was like, I'm not doing this again. Like this is cool to watch, but like I'm not sitting up here again. And I never did. You know, I was on the travel roster the rest of the year, and so it was very hard to bring myself to go watch those games and sit in those stands. But yeah, the atmosphere, like everybody's being so excited, you know, praising Deion. It was definitely frustrating. You know, it's like, especially based off the experience I had. it's like, because I know things that these students and teachers and professors don't know, and they're so excited about everything. And I just, yeah.
Any chance that they do know and just don't care?
Yeah, I would say so. Prior to today, I've really been careful with who I express my experiences with Deion to, just because I don't want to be seen as someone who's talking badly about him. I'm not. My feelings about him don't matter. I'm just telling you my story and what happened. But I told a couple people on campus, because everyone's super excited, and they would ask, "Oh, why don't you play anymore? Aren't you excited about Deion? Why did you quit?" Because as I'm sure you know, the world was told that I, along with my 50 teammates, quit the team, which didn't happen. And I told some people, I'm happy for the guys who are getting to go out there and play, but my experience wasn't positive, and I'm going to have a hard time rooting for them this year. And, the few people I did tell what happened between Deion and I, they would say, "Oh, you're just making that up. He would never do that. He's a man of God. He's a good man. He's a leader. You're just bitter because you weren't good enough to play, so you're making this up." And so I do think there was some knowledge about what had happened, and some people just didn't care.
And I also think that the college football world is revolved around one thing, and it's winning. People want to win, and so I think with that being said, that a lot of especially fans, Colorado fans don't really care whose lives are affected. And, there's, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids that have been put in situations that just have no idea what to do. But like I said, the college football world is revolved around winning. So that kind of overshadows, what actually we went through.
Absolutely.
Either of you have any interaction with Shedeur or Shiloh or Travis Hunter?
So Shiloh was not there in the spring. He came in the summer. He was finishing up his degree at JSU. I talked to Travis a couple times, and he's actually an excellent young man, super nice kid, great competitor. The final week of spring ball, the Thursday before the spring game, he actually came up to me and he was like, "Hey man, you're not planning on transferring, are you?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Good, I need you here. I need you lining up inside of me when I'm out at cornerback." I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm not going anywhere." And so, he was actually always super nice and super supportive, and I enjoyed sharing the field with him. But obviously, I didn't get the chance to stick around and play with him.
Shedeur, any interaction with him?
Not much, no.
This is maybe just a Whitlock thing. I saw a video of them at halftime of a game, pregame or halftime. They had a DJ in the locker room, and it blew my mind. And I'm just like, well, hold on, maybe I'm just 56 and everybody's got a DJ in their locker room, and that just seemed wild to me. Did Carl Durrell? Did y'all have a DJ in the locker?
No. So there's a sound system in the locker room. There's a little iPad over on the wall, so players can go over there and put in their music and play what you want to play. So we had a sound system, but we never had someone in there actively on the headphones spinning the vinyl. And we didn't have that throughout the spring either. We had it at the spring game, but never in practice. I think that's just a game day atmosphere from Deion.
It's. I'm gonna ask the question, but I'm gonna ask it. I feel like I have to ask, but I feel like you'd probably be better off not answering the question, or I don't know how you would want to answer the question. But to me, the rap thing, and because again, I've talked to others, and your story doesn't sound dissimilar to other stories I've heard about Deion and the way he engaged with young people. And I think it's pretty consistent. There's a lot of guys at Jackson State with a similar narrative. And so, and again, I'm not asking you to answer this, but maybe there's a way you can answer it without being disrespectful. But it all just makes me from afar, it's like, this guy's pretending to be this great Christian who's into discipling young people, and he's here just to treat them as men. And the more stories I hear, I just go, that sounds like a scam and a hustle. And I'm perfectly fine with both of you saying, I really don't want to touch that. But I just got to say it. To me, it just seems inauthentic, just based off of the type of behavior I keep. Because let's say I'm going to cut you from the team. While you're there, I'm still going to treat you like a great young man because there's no harm in that. There's no harm in me saying, hey, Owen, how are you doing, man? How's your family? How's classes going? I can still cut you next week. But when you don't engage with a person, you're basically saying you're beneath me. And I'm just telling you, it doesn't matter how much money I make or how famous I am. I'm never above anybody. I'm the lowest of the low. And I mean that in all seriousness. So anyway, any reaction to any of that? And I'm perfectly fine with you passing.
Okay. Yeah, what I'll say is obviously I am a Christian, and I'm a human. I make mistakes. Everybody's made mistakes, right? And so I'm not the judge. I can't judge Deion's heart. I can't do that. But I take refuge in the fact that who is the judge is perfect, and he'll make the right decision in that. And so, that's what I'll say on that is I'm not the judge. I'm not the person to judge Deion's heart with his faith.
And well, Jason, like you said earlier, I think part of it was definitely intimidation factor. I'm going to make these young men feel like they're not at home, see who quits. And it worked. Some people quit. I think, 8 or 9 guys. But one thing that my family was really upset about, because my mom and my sister were super, super big Deion fans from the start. And at the spring game, typically when the parents fly in to watch the kids play, they get to meet the position coach and meet the head coach and meet the men responsible for nurturing and teaching, their kids, their children. And Deion had been our coach for 5 months at that time, and he refused to meet with any of the parents. He didn't want to meet the people who had raised his players, and he wouldn't allow the people who raised these kids to meet the men now responsible for their kids. And so that set off red flags in my mom's head. But like you said earlier, I think it was mostly about intimidation. But the thing that upset my family was him refusing to meet them.
This just isn't good. College athletics cannot be the NFL. And I don't care how much money you pay them. I don't care that Shador drives a Rolls Royce. These are kids, 18, 19. Do you remember what it was like? I'm just talking to the audience, not to you guys. But you remember what it was like when you're 18, 19 years old? And, if I got to meet Walter Payton, or I'll go basketball, you guys never heard of this guy, but Darnell Hillman had the greatest afro ever in professional basketball history. If I ever got to meet that, what a big deal that would have been at 18, 19 years old. And then to have them treat me like I was nothing, particularly while claiming a faith. And so I'm so glad you guys came in and were willing to talk. For me, I've taken a lot of heat because I have been very honest with my thoughts about Deion and what I felt like was going on, what I know is going on. And I'm hoping that this conversation opens people's eyes to why I'm saying the things that I've been saying and why I've been questioning the things that I've been questioning. This is just, I'm just sorry. There's no price tag, and you can't sit here and say, well, they're 18, they're grown, they can go in the military and die, so why can't they get cut from the football team? And they can get cut from the football team. But you can talk to them. You can treat them like human beings. You can treat them like you're not above them. You can be respectful. And there's other stories, and the stories stretch back to Jackson State, and we're overlooking a lot. For 4 wins? 4 wins? They still finished last in the Pac-12. And, you know, I know everybody loves Deion, but Lord have mercy. So if you guys got a final thought, anything I maybe didn't ask or you wanted to say before I let you go, but certainly appreciate you guys coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having us today, Jason. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us out.
That's it.
That's it. All right, well, that's it. Play some tomorrow. I'm going to feed these guys some barbecue, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Nothing in life like freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free.